It is a Friday heading into Wild Card weekend, and welcome to Between the Horns, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Proud partner of the LA Rams, I'm JB Long, joined by my broadcast partner DeMarco Farr, our Super Bowl champion, and our pregame, halftime, and postgame host on the Rams radio network, Kirk Morrison, as well. Gentlemen, 14 teams left, 7 in the NFC. One of them is going to represent the conference in the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. Why not the Rams? Here we go.
Why not the Rams? Why not now? Yeah. Absolutely. Less than a month to the Super Bowl. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is why you lift all them weights. This is why you have that sort of diet throughout the offseason, so you can get to this point, so you can push it out for one more month. This is going to be tough. The cream of the crop is here. It's not an easy road to get to L.A., but why not the Rams? I think the Rams have just as good a shot as anybody else left in the field right now.
No, I totally agree, DeMarco. And the reason why is because this team was built for the playoffs. Look, you just want to get through the regular season. And look, you probably wanted a better seed and be the number 2 or the 1. I understand that. But I felt like the way that this team was constructed, especially during the season, some of the acquisitions, this team was built for the playoffs. That's why you have to give the Rams a chance of hosting the Super Bowl at SoFi, because they have the pieces that you think can be playoff contributors and guys who can wreck games when needed.
So, Kirk, you're telling me if back in August we're down at UC Irvine, it's training camp, and I offered you this: 12 wins, an NFC West title, a home playoff game to begin your path, with the likes of Matthew Stafford healthy at quarterback, your entire offensive line in front of him, Cooper Kupp off a Triple Crown, OBJ, a midseason acquisition, Von Miller joining Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on defense, taking into account all the other things that are going against them at this stage of the year, you'd say, roll the balls out and let's go, to borrow a basketball expression?
Yeah, kind of like the NCAA tournament, basically being able to survive and advance. Yeah. That's what this team is really all about. And I think you're right, JB. Back in Irvine during training camp, if you told me that, I definitely would have signed up for that for the Rams, because I really feel like this team, I think the NFL in general, everybody was just trying to get through 17 regular season games over 18 weeks. Now this is when the real playoffs start. If you don't think that you can win as a wild card type team or playing on the wild card weekend, we saw what Tampa was able to do. They caught fire at the right time, and that's what I've been holding all week long, because I think the Rams have a similar pedigree as that we saw from the Buccaneers a year ago that went all the way to the Super Bowl and won.
DeMarco, the main difference, of course, now that we're in the postseason, it is a single elimination format. I feel like so much of the NFL is how do you react and repair week to week, right? How do you bounce back? Yeah. How do you kind of play the long game? How do you make in-season adjustments? The Rams have been sensational, really, throughout McVay's tenure at that. They haven't necessarily been as good at in-game adjustments
there that gave San Francisco momentum, and you could not stem the tide. I'm curious to see what Dallas does with San Francisco's run game. Can they turn it back? Because the Rams struggled with that. They've struggled with that for 2 games now. And you may see them again. So that's curious down the stretch. But absolutely, man. I mean, this is a game of adjustments. At this point in the season, everybody's good. And everybody's defense has the ability to shut you out, or at least keep you out of the end zone. So you're going to need to make adjustments. Whatever your game plan was coming in, whatever you see on game day, you might have to adjust and change things. But you have to have the ability to do that. I think you have the ability. I think I trust that with Matthew Stafford. Defensively, we'll see this Monday versus Arizona if they start moving the football. I hope you have something up your sleeve to stem that tide, because the last thing you need is what happened versus San Francisco. They get rolling and you can't stop them, and then all of a sudden you run out of time to score and you start pressing on offense and you make mistakes there. So we'll see. But usually we can trust in Sean McVay, his offense and defense making adjustments, but we'll see what happens on Monday night.
All right, so let's go back in time 12 months, Kirk, and the Rams make the trade to move on from Jared Goff, their number 1 overall selection, who got a contract extension, who took them to a Super Bowl, made a couple of Pro Bowls, even last year stepped in Seattle in the wild card round and won a road playoff game with 9 fingers. But they make the move from Matthew Stafford, and the narrative is what? Okay, you've traded your franchise quarterback for another who's never won a playoff game, and that's what's going to get you to the next level. Curious, right? It's a bit paradoxical, but that's how the Rams 2021 and maybe 22 seasons will be judged. Here we are, time for judgment.
Yeah, I mean, that's the narrative that everyone has talked about all week long, really all season long. He's never won this. He's never won that. Well, I tell you one thing he's now won. He's won a division title. He had never done that. So you check that off one of his lists. Now it's about going out and winning a playoff game. And I would tell you this. I've looked at those rosters in Detroit when he was on. This is the best roster that he's probably been on in his career. So that's what gives me the opportunity that Matthew Stafford's going to go out there and be special. I think, good players in this league, we know the great players, they stand up. They show out in the big moments. And this is another one for Matthew Stafford. I think he doesn't have to worry about the Detroit years in which he has to put everything on his shoulders, JB. This is a game that if I'm Sean McVay, I'm in Matthew Stafford's ear. Hey, we know you're good, but let's just take care of the football. You've got guys around you. Let's utilize it. Let's not take the big chances, but take the chances when they're there. And I think that's where Matthew Stafford can erase this narrative, win a playoff game, and then guess what? They'll make up a new narrative. Well, can he do this? Well, can he do that? It seems like that how the goalposts move every single week when it comes to Stafford.
Well, you got to do it until you do it. I mean, Peyton Manning couldn't beat X, Y, and Z until he did it. Matt Ryan, same thing. He couldn't do X, Y, and Z until he did it. But same with Matthew Stafford. We just haven't seen it done. And that's what I would do, Kirk. That's a great thing to do. I would make sure Matthew Stafford remembers where you are. You're in Los Angeles. This is not Detroit, which means you've got great players on defense. You don't have to press. If it's not there, throw it away. We can punt, play defense, and play that sort of game. But you don't have to do it all yourself. But the one thing I was hoping, and I think every playoff team hopes, is that their quarterback goes in hot or at least goes in efficient. And I think Matthew Stafford was playing pretty well early, and then San Francisco put the clamps on him. But I wish that he was able to clean up the turnovers going into the postseason, just so that you wouldn't have your team holding your breath every time he throws the football and then relaxing when it comes down with Cooper Kupp or somebody else. But that's the only difference. So that narrative is always going to stay out there until you win that first playoff game. And you know, Kirk, as well as I do, the intensity goes up in the postseason. Oh, man. It's a whole different level of football. So just remember who you are and where you are and play to your strengths. You don't have to do it all yourself, Matthew Stafford.
That big 30-yard conversion he had to Cooper Kupp on what could have been the game-winning touchdown drive. He also was stepped on, hurt that toe. That factored into some of Sean McVay's decision-making at the end of regulation and in overtime. Fortunately, Matthew Stafford, unlike his counterpart in Green Bay, did not display his toes during his press conference this week. He did, of course, talk about the playoff narrative.
Every time I step on the field, I'm proving myself. Whether it's a preseason game, a regular season game, practice, a playoff game, I want to go out there and play well. This is just another opportunity to do that. This is a team game. There's no question. But at the same time, do I know that when the quarterback plays good, you got a better chance to win the game? Absolutely. So I'm always trying to go out there, play as good a football as I possibly can, help our team win.
Do you feel more pressure now than you felt in Detroit?
No, it goes along the same road, really. Feel the same amount of pressure every time I step on the field. If you step on the football field and you don't feel pressure to go out there and perform, then something's wrong with you. In my opinion. So it's positive pressure that I put on myself to go out there and help our team win.
Damn right. If you go out there without a sense of urgency, it's time for you to retire. I remember that feeling. But no, that's a standard quarterback answer to questions about pressure. But the difference is I actually believe him. I believe everything he said. Maybe it's how he's saying it, or I can just hear the confidence in his voice. But he's exactly right. Every time you step on the field, you should feel some sort of pressure. But I think to Kirk's point, and it's very valid, this is a great roster. You don't. It's not all on you to make it happen. If it is to be, it's up to more than just you. So if it's not there, if Arizona is playing a tight defensive game, I think this matchup is better for the Rams than against San Francisco. But if their defense is, say, pitching a shutout, or you've had some bad luck, you don't have to press to get it back. You have great weapons around you that can help you. The reason you won 12 games is not just on Matthew Stafford. It's this entire football team. So just remember that going in. You don't have to carry the entire franchise, or the Lombardi is not just resting on your shoulders. It's a team thing, and this is a pretty good roster to get it done.
I would say this, DeMarco. I kind of disagree a little bit with Matthew Stafford in having nerves. Why have nerves in this situation? I think when you have nerves or you're a little bit hesitant, is because you're not confident. I think this Rams team is very confident. They should be confident, and Matthew Stafford should be confident. You're going against, and I said this for all week long, I really felt like of all the wild card matchups, this one is best for the Rams. They're playing against a team that they've had a lot of success with over the years, especially Sean McVay. They're also playing a team for the third time this year. And it's different than the Buffalo-New England game, right? I know they played 3 times, but they've had some crazy conditions. This has been a great environment on both sides in the first 2 games. And so if I'm Matthew Stafford, I'm confident they're not going to throw anything crazy defensively. You know what's out there. You know their defensive backs, linebackers, and their pass rush. And you've played successful. I don't think you should even worry about nerves. Just go in and be confident that I've got the offensive guys. Yeah, it's not nerve, but just
it's pressure.
Have more support. But the pressure shouldn't even be talked about. I think that he should really just say, look, I'm confident. I'm probably more confident than I've ever been heading into the playoffs, because I think you got to talk about his head coach. You got to talk about his players. And then also, come on, man, I got Cooper Kupp. There should be no pressure at all as long as I got number 10 on my roster.
Well, they are fond of saying that pressure is a privilege. And look, this is what they signed up for. Matthew Stafford asked for a trade out of Detroit because he didn't want to go through a rebuild. He wanted to use what was left of his prime for moments like these, to have his first home playoff game. And Kirk, you said it earlier, this has been a season of firsts for Matthew Stafford.
Correct.
It's what the whole deal was all about, right? To give him a fresh start and the best look at getting to his ultimate goal, winning a championship. But it doesn't necessarily reflect how he's played, not even in the postseason. Here's what I mean by that. You might have seen the clip circulating this week of the 2014 wild card game at Dallas when Matthew Stafford and the Lions had a great look at a road playoff win. In fact, they were leading in the fourth quarter when they threw a pass interference flag on Cowboys linebacker Anthony Hitchens that was eventually picked up. It kind of became this phantom PI call, and the Cowboys came back to win that game. But that was on top of Sean McVay's mind this week as he answered similar questions from the media.
You know what? But like, in all seriousness, though, right? Like, here's what's crazy about this game. The narrative is that, but more than likely, if that call isn't made, then he probably has won a playoff game, you know, and it's like, did he really play any differently as a result of that? So there's still so many things that are out of our control, which is why this game will drive you crazy if you're not careful.
And here's why I like that sentiment, is because it ties last week together to this week.
Oh, yeah.
Because we could talk, obviously, for the rest of Friday about that Week 18 loss to San Francisco. But if on any one of those 3 downs, for instance, on the Rams' last offensive possession, they stand up to throw, they hit a slant, they get that first down, they take a knee in victory formation, the whole temperature of this conversation and the matchup and the seeding completely different, even though, you know, the 80-plus snaps that went into that game on both sides of the football, not much has changed. That's the same with Matthew Stafford and his postseason story.
Yeah, I agree with that, JB. It's funny. It is. The NFL every week is the narrative changes. And that's why I keep saying the goalposts change, because going into this Monday night wild card game against Arizona, Matthew Stafford has not won a playoff game. Well, if the Rams go out and win, now he's won a playoff game at home. So then what's the new narrative? Well, you know, he hasn't won a playoff game on the road, right? Like, they'll find something like, oh, you know, his record on the road in the playoffs.
But it's true,
like,
though.
Come on, man.
It's true. I mean, Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are until you stop it. So it's true. Win number 1, and then you're probably going to have to win on the road. So that's just the way it is. But I don't think anyone lacks confidence in Matthew Stafford. I don't think Matthew Stafford lacks confidence at all. If anything, it's the opposite way. The guy really wants to win. So, look, and I agree, this is a great matchup stylistically for the Rams offense and defensively. The only thing that gives me pause about Arizona, it should give everybody pause, is Kyler Murray. If that guy finds a way to extend plays, and they do run a lot of plays on offense, they pick up a lot of first downs. If they start to wear down the defense and then something bad happens and you have to go more offensive, if he starts to spray it and they start to pick it off, then you've got issues. We've seen that movie. But if he stays within himself and just plays a clean, efficient game, yeah, this should be a victory, a playoff victory for the Rams and for Matthew Stafford. And then we're on to the next narrative, like you said.
All right, DeMarco, so let's take your cue there to segue into this matchup. And as a way of getting us there, let me ask each of you if you can recall how you felt 2 years into retirement. Okay, and if Raheem Morris had texted you and called you in January and said, how many do you have left? How would your answer have compared to that of Eric Weddle this week?
What was the comment that they said? You called up and asked him if he got fat. Well, the answer for me would have been, yeah. Of course I did. Yeah, I mean, that's a shock. That's a trip, but it's a testament to who he is as a player, as an athlete, and as a person. The guy stays in shape. Like he said, he's been training like a madman. And look, I would have no qualms about dropping Eric Weddle into anybody's defense. I bet he can pick it up inside of 2 days. And that's on the long side. So, but it is shocking that you got to go to a guy that's been on the shelf for 2 years to come in and help you out because you may get thin at safety. But it's good that he answered. It's good that he's in shape, and I would be happy to have him on the field. That is a plus for the Rams defense.
Yeah, DeMarco, I'm with you. I wouldn't have been in game shape, right? We know NFL game shape is a lot different than just being in regular, just physical good shape. So I probably wouldn't have been, like, if he would have called me and said, Kirk, did you get fat? I'm like, I didn't get fat yet, but I'm kind of on the verge of getting enough. But I think, honestly, it's about trust, right? And, I've had a lot of coaches to say, hey, smart football players get you jobs, dumb football players get you fired. And so if you get in a situation where I need someone to get me through, I talked about it earlier, survive in advance, Eric Weddle can help me survive in advance. He can get me through to next week. That, our safety situation right now, we know Jordan Fuller down, and we'll see Taylor Rapp in the concussion protocol, but you're going to some guys who've been backups all season long, and they're going to play some big minutes. If I have Eric Weddle, especially him being just there, remember, he's also a coach on the field, and I think that's the part that no one's talking enough about, is that he can help guide these guys in a situation. Or if you put him on the field, you can disguise him. You can make him play in the box safety where he's not playing deep down the field. So I kind of like it. Being away for a couple of years, I still feel there's a role for him that can also kind of shield him away from a lot of the action.
I wish he was on the field last week. Maybe they don't score at the end when you get crossed up coverage-wise. Yeah, having that coach on the field.
That Juwan Jennings touchdown made the phone ring for Eric Weddle.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, well, JB.
That is the first time I've ever seen a corner have to call plays on defense. And that's impossible for a guy that's standing in the middle of the field, right over the football, call a play, and then sprint out to his responsibility. You're going to be late lining up. Your communication's not going to get across. You know that, right?
Yeah. I think, to your point, though, DeMarco, and that's one of the things that I'm be looking at in this matchup, because throughout the season, we all know it was Jordan Fuller who wore the green dot. And then Ernest Jones was a guy who I thought that you can kind of transition to putting the green dot on his helmet. Now, who is going to be that guy that gets the communication in from Raheem Morris down to everybody on the field? It's probably not the best idea, to your point, DeMarco, of having a cornerback call a play and having to sprint. And I know as a middle linebacker, I had corners who didn't even come in the huddle. Hey, just tell me. They stayed on their side of the football. So it'll be interesting how the Rams figure out how to get the communication across. Is it Troy Reeder? Right? Is it going to be Jalen Ramsey more in a star role rather than a corner role? So it's a lot at play that I want to see how do the Rams adjust to that particular situation of not having Jordan Fuller available.
Interesting. So you're telling me that you can compensate for being a step slow. What you can't compensate for is being out of position and having busted coverages. I mean, I got to say,
you got to talk, man, especially with their offense last week with those positionless guys like Deebo Samuel, and he starts in one, he motions to the other. That's a lot of communication back and forth. And when you're just getting lined up and then the ball snapped, somebody's going to be behind.
Yeah. I mean, if the path to the Super Bowl runs through Tom Brady in Tampa Bay and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, you better have a chess master back there. And I could see where Eric Weddle provides value. Although I will admit the thought of him in space against Kyler Murray and maybe even Zach Ertz is a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Right?
You lose. Yeah. When Kirk said it this week, feel great. It's the week after you worry because then everybody's got him on film and they know what he can and can't do, what his range might be, and then they'll try to take advantage. But this week, even Arizona has no idea how the Rams are going to use him, so you have the advantage. But the week after might be a problem.
Well, the Cardinals do not have DeAndre Hopkins, and since his loss, their offense has kind of fallen off a cliff. Same with J.J. Watt in the defense, which we can talk about in a second. But since one of you asked, what do you do with Jalen Ramsey this week? Normally, Nuke is his assignment, more so than almost any other matchup outside of DK Metcalf and the Seahawks.
Correct.
Without that threat, where do you go next? Do you try and lock up A.J. Green? Do you put him in the star? Do you lean towards Zach Ertz, who's the most targeted Cardinal since the loss of Hopkins? Any thoughts on that?
Ooh, you know what, DeMarco and JB, I'm starting off with you got to stop the run. That's my whole thing. If Cliff Kingsbury doesn't come in and run the ball, at least going to have to tackle, and that's going to create, I think, play action where I think Kyler Murray is more effective. So that's going to be the thing that I look at is if the Rams are stopping the run, then you fall into their hands of Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, and Aaron Donald. But if they're running the football effectively, that's the hard part for me, because now I want to see Jalen Ramsey having to go out and make some tackles, make some plays in the run game. That's my whole thing for the Rams defensively. If they can stop the run and make Kyler Murray one-dimensional, the game is in their hands. But they have to make this team one-dimensional. They have to.
Ooh, I love me some 91, by the way. You guys remember those old Any Which Way But Loose movies? The leader of the biker gang, Chola? That's what I call Greg Gaines. That is Chola. I love his attitude. But I'm with you. And if he doesn't at least try, Kingsbury, try to run the football against the Rams, then I wouldn't say fired, but, we'd have to talk about that a little bit. But I don't think they'll be able to. San Francisco is really good at running the football. Correct. They are really good. They're coached well. They do a great job in their concepts. But I don't think Arizona is that good at man-for-man on the offensive line. So I think this defensive line can handle the run. Passing-wise, to answer your question, JB, about where do I put Jalen Ramsey, I'd go back to the star. But you'd have to guarantee me that Darius Williams is going to play like Darius Williams and be healthy and be out there. And I saw when he got hurt, the 49ers do a great job of getting corners on running backs, and they're physical. So he took a shot, the shoulder kind of went down, and he was banged up from there. So, and Dante Dion is a great cover guy. He's just small. Bad matchup for the Niners. But against this group, I think he's perfect. So Jalen Ramsey, I think if you're Raheem Morris, you can put him back to the star, use him versus the run and in pass. And in certain situations, go get A.J. Green. Absolutely lock him up if they need to make a play and we need to stop somebody. So I think with this week, this offense, you have a chance to go back to doing what Jalen Ramsey was doing early in the season. Star position, pick and choose your spots, and then get the full use of this guy, his violence on the field.
As for their backfield, Chase Edmonds says he's playing this week. He also said he'd be surprised if his running mate James Conner doesn't dress. So there are two backs who led the way for the best rushing performance of the entire season for the Cardinals at SoFi Stadium in Week 4. Here's another element, gentlemen, that we have not seen yet with Kyler and the pros. There is no next week if you don't win this week. So when you talk about the Arizona running game, I have to figure that he's going to play prominently in that. You don't have to protect him over a 17-game, 18-week schedule. You just got to get to next week, and he might be your best asset running the football.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, JB. It's the controlled rush of the Rams. And I remember seeing Von Miller in that second game was really his first time rushing against Kyler Murray. And you could tell he was a little tentative. But I think it's going to be about the guys up front and how they handle their rush lanes. Because you mentioned it, Kyler Murray may put a situation of like you saw in college at Oklahoma for the most part where he just took off and can go for about 30 yards. And remember, there was that crucial third down. Remember in the first game that we saw where, the Rams should have been off the field. McVay accepts the penalty. Kyler Murray comes out and scrambles all the way to the outside, and they convert. It's those types of plays that I am scared of with Kyler Murray because he may not be truly a runner, JB, but it's those third and mediums that if they got great coverage, he can take off, get 7 yards, and protect himself and get out of bounds. So that's the part that scares me, and that's the control rush that the guys up front have to have in order to keep him bottled up in the pocket.
Not crazy. I do worry about roughing the passer calls because the guy is so short and you can tap him in the helmet and you get him. I mean, that's just a part of the game. You've seen this before, but I would say this, man. If you want me to control rush, if I'm in that defensive line meeting room, honestly, Kirk, and you have a plan that you want me to control rush, then don't tell me because I may punch you because this is an offensive line I can beat. I swear, this is an offensive line I can absolutely tee off on. So I would say go. If I have to play for free this week, then I have to play for free, meaning I'm taking shots on Kyler Murray. If he wants to be Superman, great. Then we're going to be the Legion of Doom. You put your body in harm's way, then we're going to take those shots 9 times out of 10. We're going to see how many hits you can take if you want to start scrambling. But I would say for the Rams defense, and you do make a point about controlled rush because the guy can expose you and break contain. But I would say make him prove it. Go. Yeah. Tell my guys to go. Tell Aaron Donald to go. Tell Von Miller to go. Tell Leonard Floyd to get after it. Now, if he starts making us pay for it, then we'll choke it down. We can always do that. But no way on this planet will I start the game trying to control my rush because I'm worried about one guy scrambling.
See, DeMarco, when you're talking, things come to my mind. I think a guy who may have a big key in this game is Travon Howard. He's the only guy I think that speed-wise, if you have one declared, spy guy on Kyler Murray, we may see more of Travon Howard this week in that situation that allows that rush to just go play and have one guy who has, I think, great speed to not necessarily can catch him, but slow him down, maybe even make a play in the backfield if needed.
All right, I think we have to finish by flipping sides of scrimmage here and talking about the trenches going the other way after the Rams were completely unable to run the football against the San Francisco 49ers, and Matthew Stafford was under duress for much of Week 18. You bring the pass rushing studs from Arizona into SoFi Stadium again, and maybe you add J.J. Watt back to the mix. Did you guys hear him at the podium this week talking about his shoulder injury and everything that went wrong and had to be reconstructed? I mean, that list was longer than a CVS receipt, and yet he's talking about maybe playing this week in the postseason. You can tell me whether you're buying or selling that, but the point stands, pass pro and run removal, the Rams need much better from their offensive line.
Yeah, no, last week was something that I saw from the 49ers. You mentioned it, JB, and it was more of the interior rush. And we saw it through points of the season where it wasn't the guys that were getting home on the outside. But when I'm seeing that the 49ers put Nick Bosa to the inside and put him over a guard, and I'm seeing them have the interior rush that didn't allow Matthew Stafford to step up. I think that's been the adjustment by teams, is that you're not scared of Matthew Stafford exiting east and west. You're scared of him stepping up in the pocket, exiting north and south, getting that extra hitch, that extra time to get Cooper Kupp down the field or OBJ. So I think if there's anything that we do see from J.J. Watt is trying to keep things clogged up in the middle. And if they do that, then that's where, I think the Rams have to figure something out. They have to get some kind of push up front to give Matthew Stafford that time to get the ball down the field.
How do I say this politely? I guess if you're smart, you'd be worried about J.J. Watt coming back. The guy's a problem. He's headed to Canton at some point. Having him back on the field is more than just physical. It's a lift for everybody. So that's scary, but it's not something you can't overcome. And Nick Bosa moving inside, telling me he's picking on the weak. He's going back to the middle where that 3-game losing streak, what happened? You got collapsed from guard to guard. So they tried to expose that, and they did. But I do like the Rams tackles versus these ends versus last week. Even with Chandler Jones playing the way he's playing, I like Witt versus him. I like Havenstein versus him, and that's a guy that you really need to have happen. You can't get walked back on 3rd and 6. You just can't. When it's an obvious passing down, your right tackle and your left tackle have to hold up. But that was the problem. You couldn't run it. You kept winding up in these 3rd down situations where they can just tee off. So you have got to get better running the football. I like Arizona's linebackers. They're young. They have some positionless players on defense, but I do think the same plays you called against San Fran that didn't work will work versus Arizona. You'll get that removal that you need. So the run game should be there. Then, based on that, you should be able to pick these guys apart based on play action.
One final thought, and that would be Cam Akers had essentially a preseason game last week. He got his feet wet, made his first catch, took his first handoff of the season, got tackled a few times. I expect him to look much more like the rookie we saw at the end of last year when the Rams take the field at SoFi Stadium on Monday Night Football, playoff style, wild card edition against the Arizona Cardinals. DeMarco and Kirk, we could talk about this until 5 o'clock Pacific on Monday, and we probably will behind the scenes, but let's leave it there on Between the Horns. All right, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. We get to watch the rest of the wild card.
How about that?
On Monday.
Appreciate it, JB.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week to Between the Horns, as always, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers, proud partner of the LA Rams. Rams fans, your first chance to see a Rams playoff game inside SoFi Stadium this Monday. Stafford, Donald, the rest of the Rams against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. For the 3rd time this season, go to therams.com/playoffs, therams.com/playoffs to secure your tickets for the wild card matchup and the right to advance to the divisional. That's therams.com/playoffs. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Hope to see you Monday night in Inglewood.